Now.
And welcome back to the Everyman, guys. This episode, we are talking about photography.
Two guests.
Bam. On today. Also, would you please kindly go check out our Memorial Day episode?
Yes, if you
We are
haven't
up the
seen it
mountains
yet.
with four guests.
Four, because
Four,
six
because
of
of-
us total. Because we are two people.
We are two men.
And
We are two Everyman guys.
so if you have four guests,
Shocking
and there's
today.
two of us already, that's a little more than seven.
Shocking today, though. It is not just the Everyman guys.
It is.
It is the every one of us.
And
people.
two
Humans?
other people,
Two other people.
mostly.
Not guys.
Also, in other news.
We released our first skit, and you should go check it out because it is awesome,
And we love it.
and we love it, and we love each other as friends.
It's our first efforts to making this more than a podcast.
Yes,
Actually. So
it's called All Play and No Work. It is great. Check it out.
see. And
And we're changing our release schedule again.
a little bit of a release schedule change.
We are doing
releasing
Thursdays.
Thursdays.
Hello to one of our guests who just walked in.
And Journey's going crazy.
And Journey's going crazy
We'll
because
wrap
that's
this
what Journey
up.
do.
Final thing.
Final thing.
Tell them.
Subscribe and like
Do it, please.
and share. Do all the things.
all the things that he said to do.
Rate us there.
Because I agree
Do
with
them.
him.
Obviously, he agrees.
Shake
when
on
we
it.
come on,
We.
our two guests are going to agree. You hit my mic.
I know. I did
With
it on
my own
purpose.
hand.
Right.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Bye,
Bam.
I'm recording now, so you can ask.
I'm
who they
recording.
Are.
Okay. Are we ready?
Go ahead.
Welcome back to the Everyman guys. I'm Jim.
I am William Allen Hyman.
And I'm Paula.
I'm Rose.
And this is our episode about photography. This is episode 30. We've
Yeah,
done
that's why we wanted to have you guys on.
because it's a special episode and you
The
guys
big
are
3-0.
the big
Yes,
3-0.
because we can relate to this too, even in terms of filmmaking and doing this podcast.
Yes.
So it was just
yes. So, this is under my feet.
It's good that we got set up before we started.
It's good
That
though.
was
And
one
now
thing
we're
that I was
shifting. And my
thinking
pillow
about.
was gone
I
somehow.
know.
My
You
pillow's
haven't had
gone.
one in weeks, honestly.
In weeks. It's the deer one over there. So, well, do you
Jim.
know Paula?
There's two people to our
There's
right.
two people, and they're not guys.
One of them was my girlfriend.
The ever so often talked about on this podcast,
Paula.
and the never talked about on this podcast, Rose.
So to get you guys up to speed, Paula is my girlfriend. She's
Your
more than
fan.
just my girlfriend. And Rose is my niece. And
And they're both my friends.
I'm his additional girlfriend.
Yes, exactly. She is my best girlfriend. She's my best friend who is a girlfriend. Best friend to my girlfriend and also my best girlfriend.
But I'm friends
a lot
with
of
his
things.
girlfriend.
She's
so
best
I'm not
friends.
like
Yeah.
invading on that.
Exactly. It's not like it's natural, guys. It's okay.
I don't want to go off topic, but you know our no shorts rule?
Yeah.
It's really killing me right now.
Oh, really? It
I'm
is.
sweating.
I'm
I'm
dying. Rose just got back from soccer.
Yeah, it was
How
a
was that?
2.5-hour game.
That's always fun. And then
Hot.
come to sit
It's not
and do a
ideal
podcast.
because
We had
it's like
2 water
upper-
breaks in the second half.
upper 80s
Who
right
won?
now.
Tie 0-0.
You're joking.
Well, at least you played for 2.5 hours.
worth it.
At
My
least you played for
goodness.
2.5 hours to figure out nobody wins.
Nobody wins.
We all just
You should have
lost.
just done penalty
Because we
shots.
played soccer
I
in
know.
80 plus degree weather.
Well, you win because you're on the Everyman Guys podcast.
100%.
That's true.
100%. Yes. So could you guys
On a
say?
special
Could you guys
episode.
just do me a favor and say, long time listeners, first time on
On the news.
talkers, podcasters.
No, Jim, don't make them do
Really?
dumb things.
No, I don't want you
Then
to
they're
actually
going
do
to
it.
look dumb.
I did, but then he said not to, so it's fine. Should we just go right? Should we roll right into
I mean,
it
I
after?
feel like that's probably the best just because
because we've already
we
introed.
covered. Yeah, we covered our.
Are you
we
guys
covered our
feel
intro
properly
notes.
introed?
Yeah.
Is there
feel
anything
properly
else you want to
introed?
introduce of yourself?
Yes. No.
Nope.
Nothing.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
oh. Let's just
Yeah,
the elephant in
that's
the room.
right,
The
right.
elephant in the room.
Yeah.
We actually have them wearing headphones and they have pod mics.
Oh,
Yeah.
we didn't even do that in the intro notes.
No, we're-
That should have been
we're
our
growing
intro
up.
notes. We're getting
We're
big.
evolving. Yeah, big boys.
Ideally, they would have matching
I
headsets
said getting
and
big boys. That's not
We
what I
wouldn't
meant.
have to hold our mics.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
And you may
Ideally.
notice that but the idea of fairness, we really didn't want to hold our mics 2 weeks in a row.
I was like, should we just hold our mics too? And it's like, but we have stands.
Yeah, but
Why?
and we have a setup.
We couldn't think of a valid reason to do it.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
if like halfway through we are like,
Yeah,
I literally
exactly.
said to Jim, I'm like, do you think
Exactly.
your arms are going to get tired? And he's like, well, I didn't get tired. I was like, that's true. So if you can handle it.
If
These
I
are,
can
like,
handle it, you
probably
guys
5
should.
pound weights.
They are really
No,
heavy,
they're
aren't
I
they?
know.
They're
Aren't they heavier
thin.
than you were expecting?
they're
Yeah,
big.
thick with 2 C's, maybe even a 4th.
So it wasn't only Frank that was laughing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's talk about photography. This is what this episode is about, and the reason we have them on is because they know nothing about photography.
Right. Yeah, we're getting them into photography.
Yeah. No, these two are excellent photographers, and Will is a videographer / photographer, and I once took pictures.
Was an ex. He's an ex
I am
photographer.
an ex-photographer. I am more a words.
You're more of like you thought it was going to be cool, and then you couldn't commit because you realized it wasn't what you were passionate about.
Yeah, kind of. That's pretty much it. Also, we wouldn't have this if I didn't
True,
commit
because you
and then
traded it
not
in,
commit.
and now we're doing this.
And you like tell the story
I was
of
gonna
what
say.
we take.
Yeah, exactly.
You could be like a
exactly.
good captions guy
Yeah,
instead of
exactly.
actually taking
Yeah,
a
but-
picture.
Well, I was
You're good for
saying.
I'm
some.
always looking for an Instagram.
Yes.
Exactly. I have given a few. Well, that's what I would say is I went through I was a professional. I was a professional creep, kind of, because I looked through your guys' Instagram
Before this,
before this to look at your pictures and be like, okay, this is this. And
Because
then I
we're
looked
taking
through
this
Because we're
seriously.
taking
Are
this
you gonna
seriously.
like shout me out right now?
Yeah, we will
Yeah.
shout you out because
Both
we will
of
be
the-
having the graphics shout you out. But I don't know
we'll
your
have
actual.
your Instagrams like
Yeah.
right there.
You want to
in
be
front
shouted
of
out, don't lie. Just as long as you shout us out back. So let's get right into our first topic, which is when did you guys get into photography? This is kind of a broad
Yeah.
question
So we'll
to
all
everybody,
kinda
but
just
we'll start with Rose. When did you get
bank
into
on
it?
it.
I would say I started on my phone. I got really interested in it, like maybe like for the longest time that I remember, like 4 or 5 years ago. But
Right.
then Connor bought me my first camera, which was a Canon camera, 2019 Christmas.
2019.
And then I just recently traded it in for a Sony to match what William and Paula had.
We were there when that happened. We were there.
All
present.
three of you guys.
There was a big
So
moment.
you would say about 5 years.
You can make her move.
Jern, go sit over there.
Go sit, Jern.
Come on.
Go
Go
away.
sit over there.
So you said like 3 or 5 years?
I would say,
Around
I
there?
mean, but it was just on my phone.
Right.
I would sometimes use my mom's camera.
You
but
got
it
the
wasn't
bug,
like,
though.
Yes.
Around then.
See, that's
100%.
usually
It's
how it
from
starts.
Being, yeah, I was gonna say it's
Yeah.
from being around William,
Yeah.
Uncle Justin, all those
Right.
people.
Paula.
Right.
That's literally how it starts.
Nice little right in there insertion.
My girlfriend.
She's my girlfriend.
We're just gonna cut. Will's gonna be sitting on my lap.
And she's really good at photography. No, but like that's how it typically starts.
Yeah.
Because like if you typically you're not taking photos on your phone unless you're really into photography.
Yeah.
Like at least at the beginning, and then
Yeah.
you have to start somewhere. So the only place really to start is with your phone, and then typically from there it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll get a camera,
'Cause
and
at
you
this-
don't really know what you're doing.
Well-
so then you buy like a cheaper camera and then upgrade from there, which is
Yeah.
like
Which
kind
I was
of
gonna
that's
say,
the
that's
stage that
literally
you're
what I
at
did,
now.
yeah.
Well, our buddy Trev, when we went to Disney World in 2019, was it? He was taking tons of pictures
That
on
was
his phone.
both of us.
Yeah, but and I remember you guys talking about so much, and then you guys got back and ordered cameras
Yep.
and stuff like that. So yeah, it usually I feel like starts on
Well,
the phone.
Paula, did you didn't really have a stint with your phone, right?
I feel like just before I feel like Paula was like talking about photography, and then instantly she
I was
was
gonna
like,
say-
You kind of
I've
knew
taken
what you
pictures,
wanted,
and
right?
this is some of my portfolio, and I was like, that's impressive.
Right?
No, it was more like I was like getting pictures taken of me because of him.
Because
Yeah.
of Will.
And then it was like, well, this is how I want the picture to look. He wasn't getting it.
Right. It
That's
was born
true.
out of ego.
but that's true though.
That's probably
Yeah.
a better place to start.
Yeah. So then,
That's not a bad place to
First
start.
Well, I remember having the conversation with you where it was like, you always will point out, you know what would be a really good picture?
Yeah.
And it was like you already had that thought in your
Yeah.
mind of like, it's the same thing as storytelling is you know exactly what you want. It's like, all right, well, if you do it, then why wouldn't you just take the picture?
yeah.
And that's kind of where you were at, but it was more like
We will get into
you wanted
that.
to tell the
We will,
story.
yeah, we
But
will
yeah,
get into
like,
that.
Like Paul, you
Definitely.
can expand on it because I don't want to like tell the story for you.
Yeah.
But I remember having those conversations
yeah.
with you.
Yeah, no, exactly like that. It was more like I was getting pictures taken, and then it was like I knew exactly what I wanted, but I didn't know how to use a camera.
Right.
And then he taught me how to use a camera. His camera first.
Right.
Yeah.
A Canon one.
Oh,
I remember
say,
you started
We
on
both
I
started
forgot.
on Canon.
Was it
I got
down
a
the
Canon.
shore?
down the shore
Yeah.
for New Year's, right?
Canon
Right around because we
SL2.
came down
And
and
I
you
had a
showed me
Canon
some of your. I
SL3.
remember you
Yeah.
posted on Instagram. I'm like, did you
Yeah.
take those on your
Yeah.
camera? That was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, and then like I used it only for like a month or something.
you shot a
and
wedding
then
with that camera.
I did.
Yeah.
She forgot.
Well, you know what's funny is like, say for both of you, it was you took photos with that Canon camera and you had the ability to use something better. So it was different than say for me when I upgraded first.
Yeah.
It was like I didn't, other than looking it up online and seeing like other Instagram photographers, like their capabilities, you guys had the ability to have the camera in hand.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
super easy for you to be like, all right, I understand why I need to upgrade.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, as soon like Paula got her camera before I did, and then I
Yeah.
tried hers, and I was like, all right, this is way better than
Yeah,
mine.
and it was like if you know that you love photography, because I feel like you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Oh,
you,
yeah.
you know right away. If you know you love it, it's not a bad decision to get a really nice camera right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Well, you say about that, like what you know you love it, is kind of like the next topic was like, I felt like you guys immediately, especially you, had a style and like a go-to photography setting right out of the gate. Like
Yeah.
how did
Especially
you
Paula.
how
I
did
was
you
gonna
find
say.
that? Like when you first started, like did you said you knew like when you wanted it a certain way.
Yeah.
Like is that how it started? You were like, I want to see this, so I'm gonna make this.
Yeah, exactly. Like we would go out, like William and Trevor and I, on like a Saturday, and like they would be like shooting like Pennypack Trail or something,
Right.
and I was just like, I love taking pictures, but I hate taking pictures of this.
Right.
And then it was just like, okay, well, what do I actually like taking pictures of? And it was like, okay, well, you guys get in the picture, and then it was like, oh, I like this, but there's no interaction between anyone because it's just one person, and then.
well, question like where did you find that? Like for me, I remember seeing Peter McKinnon on YouTube, and that was like, oh, that was awesome to me. Right away, I was hooked. So like, where did you like? What made you go couples photography? Like,
Well, it was more like I wanted pictures of you and I. And then it was
and then you realize
I was like,
we're
oh,
never
yeah.
gonna get that. So
Like,
I'll just
oh,
do
wait.
it for other people.
Will's super
Exactly.
ugly. I can get
Crap. I
attractive
need an
people, and I
attractive
can but I feel like your photography, like I feel like that benefited you a lot coming out of the gate because, like, you've like, how long have you been doing it? 2019, right? So that was New Year's 2019. So like 3 or 4 years, or 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years. You've already like perfected.
Well,
Couple-
you're technically a
I was gonna
professional.
say,
Technically a
yeah.
professional.
If you get paid to do it and you get asked to do it, I think you're a professional. And
100%.
I would say
Yeah.
that of like when it comes to couples photography, like you get like an emotion out of people that is like you very rarely see. Like it's not just taking a picture of two people. It is like we'll get into it, but
Yeah.
it's storytelling in
yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
100%.
But Rose, how did you like? You said you're taking pictures on your phone and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
how long have you been in photography? Same
2016.
So I'm bad at math. 7 years.
Yeah, about,
7 years.
yeah.
Okay, so was Will like help you get into photography, or were you
Oh,
just get the bug
yeah.
yourself?
I think
gonna
it's,
say-
I think it's like you feel it around you, and it's
I was
kind of
gonna
like
say, and seeing
Right.
him constantly do it made me like, all right, well, I want, like what
You
he
can do
does
it.
is cool, so I want to do it.
Right.
Like when he would draw, I
Right.
would. I got into drawing
Yeah.
because of what he was doing.
Right. Well, like I said on what was our first episode, I said if you want to know how persuasive Will is, we had 6
Yeah.
friends in our friend group. 4 of them at one point had a photos with this person's name as an Instagram bio. So that's how we got into photography. I would
now
And
say.
then he got
changed
one
to
more.
media.
Yeah, now it's media. Oh yeah.
But I don't want to move out of style yet because
Yeah.
Rose, one thing that I noticed is like, I feel like you don't have a style yet.
100%.
Like say a style in terms of
Like
you,
I'm not sticking with anything.
exactly.
Like-
So like what like explain that? Like you just kind of
Like
you're
I
kind of
would say
just
one
shooting
thing-
around.
I'm playing the field a little bit.
No, it's like it's like I love taking pictures of couples and stuff. Like when I get to take pictures of you and William, I think it's awesome. But it's like, oh, well, Paula, not that I can't do what Paula does, but like she normally does it. So like I don't know about like asking other people to do it. And like I also think like catching people's like emotions, like even if it's like just a random person on there, I like doing that also.
So being the creep, I went through all your guys' Instagram, right? So what I realized was I like when you just kind of when you're scrolling through Instagram, you see a picture, you're like, okay, and you're like, oh, maybe that looks all the same. But if you go to people's photography and you look at them all separately, I see your style, and I see both of their styles in your stuff.
Yeah.
I would say that my favorite stuff that you have shot by far is down at the Phillies game.
Yes.
Those pictures you took of like you had Connor and the heart, and it tells so much of what we were doing in that day. It's I have it as one of my screensavers. Gnome has pictures that you took of us as one of There's some of my favorite pictures, and like I feel like it's a combination and a blend of what these two do really well. Because I feel like Will is like get like beauty anywhere, and Paula is like the beauty in people and the emotion, and you get like perfect just that timing. I don't know how you do it. I don't know if you asked to do it like 800. I know, but I'm being serious.
That would be awesome
serious though.
for
like
you to go
looking
into
at the pictures that you take, it's like it's that perfect like because I'm not just sitting there. I feel like with Noam and just being like, you get to where it's like that,
when you and Noam are getting pictures done by her.
We get that boom moment where it's like. I'm like, I didn't even know I did that, but I'm glad that you got that. So like,
can you kind of dive into that a little bit? Because honestly, like I shot a little bit of couples photography. Like I've done a couple jobs and never could like kind of dive into how you get your couples to, I don't know, kind of express that emotion.
Be in love.
Because honestly, I've done couples photography a little bit, but could never kind of guide them, I guess. Yeah. Like think about a couple that's like watching this, like, oh, I would get pictures done, but I'm not good at getting my photo taken.
Well, like first of all, I feel like it's easy to say that it's like me, but like I can't force you guys to be in love. Like you said, be in love. Yeah. If you can tell right away in a picture whether a couple's like kind of standoffish.
Right.
Obviously, it's my job to make them not look like that, but it's way harder when they are like that. But I would say it's mostly just like, okay, let's do like a prompt and then not even take the picture when they're doing the prompt. And everyone's so concerned about how they're going to do this. And like, oh, we're going to look dumb. Like we're taking Rose and Connor's pictures. Like, all right, okay, let's like run down this alley and like when you get to the end, like spin. And then they're like the whole way down the alley, they're like, okay, when we get to the end, we have to spin. And then before they even get to the end, they're cracking up because they're thinking about how they're going to spin at the end.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to spin at the end.
Right.
It's like before the spin where it's like, oh, this is the best picture.
That raw emotion.
Exactly. And like
so that's the
pictures,
trick.
Exactly. And the pictures that I'm going through, if my 800 pictures from a session, I'm only keeping 400 of them. And the 400 I'm getting rid of are all the ones where they're doing what I told them to do.
Doing the poses, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's I feel like you saying that it makes
genius.
you think like it's similar to this, what we're doing right now. And when we film, our first 7 takes, never good. Sometimes it depends on the scene.
It just depends.
But because you have to get out of the mindset of like, okay, I'm doing this thing.
Yeah.
It just has to be done.
Yes.
It is not. You can't be thinking, okay, I'm doing this. You just have to do it because like if you're thinking about it, you're more so you're so in your head and you're not even thinking. I'm like me sometimes. Like I'm with Noam right now. I'm thinking, okay, what did she say to do? Okay, and then it's almost secondary that it's what the picture is. But like when you have us, one of my favorite that we did with you was up camping when you had me come up from behind her.
Yeah,
love those pictures.
What is that prompt so that they can know?
Well, you can put it up. You can put it up while she's describing it. You can still describe it.
Yeah.
It's the airplane or what?
Like, I think I just told you, like, we were on the dam, and I just said, like, run up behind her and spin her, like, pick her up and, like, spin her around. And, like, the whole pictures you can see, no, she's like, and then he's right behind her. It looks awesome.
It looks so good. And it's I think we can go into, like, storytelling. That's, like, your story. Is you tell the story of the couple. Like, It's like we said about it. Like when I when I started doing photography, I was trying to find. I'm more of a descriptive. So like I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for in just photography.
Yeah.
I find that in writing. I find it in like details and stuff like that. But like when I look at your guys' photography, you're all telling stories. Like you're all telling your own. Everybody has their own way of telling a story, and photography and videography is like your guys' way.
Yeah.
So like, how does that like? How do you guys realize that you're doing that? Or are you like looking for that, or is it just kind of like naturally? It's just what you're doing. Like Rose, you can start.
I mean, like,
Fixer headset thing. You can keep going.
I would say, like, if I see something and I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. And then you think about it later that, like, oh, that could actually really mean something. Like, walking up to the Phillies game, like, taking pictures of everybody walking up in their Phillies shirts, and the Citizens Bank Park is the stadium behind it, and it says it. And, like, oh, well, you could post this, and it could mean, like, all right, we're all Phillies fans, and it means something to us, but I can't say that I actually like think about it really before I go and do it.
Right.
But I think that's a skill that you develop that like, and we've talked about this like extensively that like when you're really good at storytelling, you don't really think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more just like you're prepared for it and you capture it. It becomes less of a thought and more of a that's just what you're used to doing.
Well, again, when you're not in your head.
Kind of. But like say for you, like not doing a ton of couples photography, which is the same as me, you understand that it's like it's more of a because you're not really capturing, you have to create the emotion.
Yeah.
Where when you're doing couples photography, it's more like you prompt them to create that emotion like within themselves.
Which I think, like, with me, like, say, if you're taking the, like, say, the main pictures, say, at a wedding, I like capturing, like, the other people's reactions of stuff. Like, I think reactions and stuff like that is so, like, it means the most to me.
Yeah.
Even though, obviously, couple pictures are so cool and everything.
Right.
And I think it's so easy to be like, well, if it's a girl, she's going to gravitate more towards just taking couples photography.
Yeah.
So it's impressive, like, say, for you being a girl to, like, find a other style that like actually can show something rather than like
and also
just
it would have
being,
been
like,
easy. It would have been easy for
exactly.
you
That's
to
what I mean.
say,
Exactly.
but you're still finding that style.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think you learning how to tell stories outside of it and say when you help Paula with say doing like second shooting, I think that's a skill that is like so beneficial that when you do find what you're really passionate about, you'll already be good at the storytelling aspect of it. And that's always going to trump any part of photography.
Yeah.
Like most people could give two hoots unless they're a tech nerd and they just care about the pixel peeping and like, oh, how many megapixels is this? Most of the time, if the story is really good in a photo and you can kind of evoke a strong emotion, that photo is going to do much better than any photo that's 60 megapixels and
I know,
crystal
think
clear.
about how many times you've seen a picture like on Instagram, like us as photographers, and think like, oh, I hate that picture. But everyone's commenting like, oh my gosh, this looks awesome. And it's like, it's only because you think of it as a photographer, like it doesn't even look good. But it does show some emotion and it is a good picture, but it's not like a good photography.
It's like that with all art. I feel like it's like there's subjective and objective, where it's like objectively, that's not technically proficient.
Yeah.
But subjectively, to them, they're telling a story. Like with your photography, like you said about like getting, your girl, you just get into like, it'd be easy just to get into couples photography. But I feel like with your couples photography, it's like a lot of times you see it, not your, like you see other people's, it's like, that's a couple. And that's, they're out there taking pictures of a couple. I never really get, and it, like, honestly, I never really just get that vibe. I'm always like, oh, I see what she's going for there. I see the nuance of what she's trying to do there. It's so much more than just, oh, you just hug her. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just hug each other. Like you're telling a story through that couple. It's not just here's a couple.
You're telling
they
their
like
couple,
each other.
their story.
And
How do you find that? Like, how do you find that if when you're out there? Is it like couple based, or do you just go with like, okay, this is a plan for all couples and it all runs the same?
No, definitely couple based. Like you go into it like I gotta like walk onto a field with a couple, and I'm like, okay, my first prompt always is like just hold hands and walk away from me because it just gets everyone, kind of loose and flown.
Right.
And you can tell like I know if I'm taking a couple pictures of Rose and Connor that I don't need to say that first.
Right.
Yeah.
I know I
right.
can jump right into like more, different ones that are more in depth. But like, there's been plenty of couples where it's like, okay, walk. And they're like, well, should we walk like with our right leg first or our left leg first?
Right.
And it's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
there's
right.
would definitely be a lot of overthinking
Yeah.
involved
Right.
for sure. Before we move on from storytelling, I just want to shout out, in case you haven't heard of her, Annie Leibovitz. I watched a masterclass on her, and she's, I don't know how old she is, but she's been doing it for years, and she shoots on film, and like just recently got into like, say, the mirrorless cameras and everything. But that opened my eyes immensely because she was shooting 35 millimeter film and with not really like bokeh background. Everything was in focus. All she did was kind of get to know the individual that she was photographing or put them in a position where they felt the most who they are and captured like just phenomenal photos that you didn't have to think about what the story was. You were just blown away by the picture, but you're like, I don't know why I'm blown away by it, but I know that there's such a good story here. So being able to do that, because like I said, it's not a fancy 85 millimeter lens with 1.4 f-stop, and it's like super blurry background, eyes are crisp.
Right.
It wasn't any of that. And she managed to, and I know there's hundreds of thousands of other photographers that can do it, but like she managed to capture just a story, just kind of without even worrying about the technical specs of the camera. And that's why I got into the Fujifilm X100V, because I was like, I want to be able to do that without relying too heavily on having the best camera. And I mean, couples photography is different because that couple wants high quality photos. Like, and not that these aren't high quality, but
Well, it's similar to filmmaking in a way. Something just popped on the up, and it's gone now. It's similar to the way, and I always go to movies. Is like there are comedies and dramas and this and that, but there are so many different styles to which you can accomplish the same thing. Like I always think about it, like we just watched a movie by Edgar Wright, and what he does a lot is like fast. So like it'll cut to this, and I grab my iPad, and then it'll cut over here. I grab my phone, and it'll be like, and you're like, okay, that's cool. But then there's this, there's so many different ways of doing a shot of somebody collecting their things, but there's just different styles, and it just depends on what you gravitate towards more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like when you're doing photography, it's the same thing. It's you're very good at couples photography. But that's just your style of couples photography is so good. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't mean that you can only do couple. It's just your style, that the way you you go about editing and shooting, and that's just your style of how you do it. And the same with you. You're just finding your style. It could be the same picture. You could have the same mountainside. It's just the way that you do it. You know what I mean? Like it's the same with any director. It's just the way anybody can direct anything.
you learn to put yourself in the
It's
right
just-
position
It's just the way you
and
do
set
it.
it up.
And
yeah, I mean, think about like how many times like we've been told, like because we're like a younger generation, that like what we're taking like picture wise, like like well we older generation,
Yeah,
we just want like a good crisp photo. Like
Right.
I'm not looking for that at all.
Right,
Like that's not
exactly.
even
No.
I don't
it's not even on
want
your
that.
radar.
Yeah. And that's what people that are older, that's what they're looking for.
Right.
So
No
like
edit whatsoever.
yeah,
Right.
like I mean, I feel like that's just like shows you, like I could put a picture next to someone that's older and it's like it's the same exact picture, but it's like completely different style and
Right.
tells completely different story.
It's also how you read into it. The message is popping up again.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
We're going to take a short break.
We're back. We're back.
Hold on. Okay.
Now we're back.
Yeah, we're back.
We're
We
back.
just took a short break and we're back.
Camera definitely didn't overheat again. That did not happen.
Yeah.
Didn't stick it in the freezer either.
Did not happen.
Guys, I did all of that. Everything that we just said didn't all happened.
Yeah. I just need to hit one of them.
Yeah, he doesn't get to use his.
I
voice
don't.
that
Not
often.
enough. Not too many times. So what we're moving on.
Moving on to the next question.
To the next topic.
Topics. Sorry.
Gosh, Will.
I'll sort myself out.
Yeah, do it. We're done. We're shutting down. So you guys have been photographering for a long time, doing the photography life. Photogarium theorem.
Photographing.
Have you run into like speed bumps along the way where you're like, okay, this is like, you know what I mean? Like this is either going to make or break me as this is still my hobby. You know what I mean? Like you're like,
I can kind of walk you into
like-
it because
Yeah.
we
came up
had
with this
talked
idea.
about this topic. So essentially, what I wanted to say was that when I did a wedding for the first time, that was a ton of pressure to make sure you kind of had everything nailed down. And I did my first wedding. I filmed my first wedding the year that I got my first camera. And that was like an immense amount of pressure that was, say, adversity that when I was within that, it led me to kind of get really good at my camera controls and learn shutter speed, learn f-stop, learn all these different things that I would say is kind of the adversity that we're talking about. That I don't know, like how to explain it. There's buzzing. Is there buzzing?
I don't hear the buzzing.
I'm hearing buzzing. We're hearing buzz. There's technical difficulties.
No, I don't hear it.
No, we don't hear it. It's fine.
Okay, so that's essentially what we mean. Like,
Yeah.
basically, is there anything that you remember happening or going through as a photographer that kind of led you to become the photographer that you are, or kind of grow as a photographer, if that makes sense?
I mean, I would say, like, I shot my first, I guess all the weddings that I helped you with my Canon camera, and I found so many times that, like, oh, I just wish that was, like, a sharper image or whatever, and I could see where, like, that camera was lacking compared to what Paula was getting.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, at the end, I was like, oh, I wish I got this to be clearer or whatever, but that's what made me want to get the camera, the same thing you and Paula had. Because you guys knew how to use it really well, and I always ask you guys how to use like the settings and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
You could just say no.
Nothing. Everything's been smooth
Like,
for me.
Nothing.
First of all, William's first wedding that he filmed with his camera, I went with him, and he had to change his battery as the bride was getting ready to walk down the aisle.
That was
So I would say that
worst.
shocked me
That was-
into ever not checking my
That
battery.
was the worst feeling of all time.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I know a worse feeling.
Was there?
Yeah.
Yes.
The last
When you
wedding we
guys
did
came
together.
home shaking and thought you were.
Okay, should I tell that story right now?
That's an
We're
adversity.
talking about adversity. So.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
Because
so
I was nervous
the
for you.
so the first story is the bride was getting ready to walk down the aisle, and my battery was flashing red. And a walk down the aisle, you know, like the brides, how they normally just boom, 40-yard dash, run to the front. That actually doesn't happen if you've never been to a wedding. So that was like an unbelievable amount of stress. Paula came
I was
through
gonna say,
clutch.
mind you, it was like, get a battery out.
Get a battery.
Oh, while trying to be hushed tones because you're at a wedding.
So the second absolutely worst, I would say top 5 top
No, it was
number one, the worst thing that's ever happened to me with filming or photography or of anything of the sort. Paul and I were doing a wedding together, and it was people that we didn't know. And if you're watching this, nothing happened. It was fine. Everything's great. They have their video now, and they're happy. It got to the end of the night, and
No, it was halfway through the night.
halfway through the night, 3/4 through the whole shoot. Okay. And I had to switch my battery. So I go plug the other one in, plug it in, turn it on. And my camera says preparing image database for whatever. And
Not good
I know
things.
what that means in my head, but I'm like, it's not. No, it's not. Because that means it's getting your card ready for shooting. And that happens after you format a card.
Format meeting, you've erased
Format
everything on the
meeting
card.
just gone off the face of the
Shaboink.
earth in wherever. And I turned on my camera, nothing. Hit the play button, nothing. No files or anything. And this was both of my cards. Like there was nothing on either card
Mind you, this was right after the groom walked up to William and said,
about how much.
one of my friends told me that the best thing about their wedding was their video.
No stress
Salt in the
whatsoever.
wound, ladies. Salt
That
in
was
the
right
wound.
before it happened, and then right after it happened, as we're leaving, because past that point, which Paul, you know, like I was shooting like crazy because I'm like, I'm gonna literally have to tell him I don't have any files, and I'm like, but this is what I got. So I told Paul, I said I ended up with like 100 videos in the last like 15 minutes of shooting.
Every single guest,
Because
there's a video of them eating their entire cake.
literally, because I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna give him. And mind you,
Start reenacting the wedding.
mind you, I couldn't, like, Paula drove home because I was like, well, I'm gonna see like what I can do, and I had no idea what I could do.
Well, me and Noam are waiting here for them to be done, and we're like in content. I'm like, Will seems a little bit off, doesn't he? And she's like, a little bit, yeah. And then Noam and
say.
Paul's like, I'm like, did somebody die?
On
It was
the,
yeah.
yeah, inside, yes. So on the way home, I'm literally, I'm just praying. I'm just praying like more than I've ever prayed in my life. Like somehow these videos have to go back on the card. And I just literally turned the camera back on and went into the play, and the videos were all there. And I literally almost started
Oh,
crying.
I know. I was gonna say at the venue he had like a panic attack in the bathroom.
Like I cannot even express. I thought I was gonna die.
That is like
I was
like
gonna say
a
we got
perfect
a
office
text from
episode.
Alyssa about it.
It was the worst feeling in the world. And then when your prayer was answered and opened
Intense
back up,
jubilation.
opened it back up, it was just I felt like I was floating. Like
I was
I was
like-
outside of my body, running next to our car. Like, oh my gosh,
I was
I
like,
can't
We're
when
believe
we
this
got
just
back, I was
happened.
like, go take your card, put them on your computer, and copy them like 800 times.
Even now, like my heart's racing thinking about it. That was just honestly the worst feeling. Not even just outside of
'Cause if
photography.
anything you could have
just the
like
worst.
not gotten, it would have been better for the reception to be not gotten.
I
But,
know.
like,
know.
you
Yeah.
I
can't
know.
reenact
The end of the night
animal
isn't
sex.
exactly what everyone's
And
looking for in their video.
The worst part was that was the first. That was like the first time that I mic'd up the bride and groom. It was the best, easily the best wedding video I've ever done,
Right.
and I was super excited about it the whole day. And then it was just like gone. Does
Your
not
camera was like,
exist.
he's a little bit too excited. Let's bring it down.
And
a
just
little
like
bit.
for those of you that do understand photography, when you format cards, that's like
That's not even like an
that's like
understand
going into your
photography.
iPhone. This is what it's like. It's like deleting a photo in your iPhone, going into recently deleted and removing it.
and then burning
That's-
your phone in the backyard.
That's formatting your
Yes.
cards. So if you're wondering if prayer gets answered, that was just the worst and the best.
I thought you were gonna say the best first. And like
So
the best
anyway,
worst.
adversity.
Yeah, adversity.
But
I was
yeah.
gonna say, so I haven't had any adversity, but his adversity.
Well,
is
okay, so
good.
not really.
You've,
Okay, so
you've lived through his adversity.
so take adversity out of it. What do you feel like
'Cause there's a
pressured you
question.
to become a better photographer?
Because there's a question, there's a topic that's, was there a time you felt you weren't cut out to be a photographer? Does that apply as well? Where you're
Yeah,
like-
maybe
or are
you
you
can
just like,
kinda merge.
oh, no.
I mean, I feel like if I
It
don't
came out on the
answer
other
this,
side of
like,
that.
yes,
Ego is like
Well, Paula,
like,
Paula,
okay.
I remember you first starting. You couldn't get editing down.
yeah,
I would say same for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Until I got presets and like you guys said about like, oh, these would be good ones. I was like, I didn't think any of my photos were good because I couldn't get the editing down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess there was one wedding. I shot the whole wedding. And then like when I got it off and I was like looking at it, I was just like, I hate these pictures.
You weren't thrilled with them.
Yeah, and I just like edited them to death. And like I tried this. I was like, I can't. I was like crying in my bed while I was like, I just do not like any of these. And I know if I would have sent them to them, they would have loved them.
Right.
But I was like,
I
I
know.
hate these pictures.
Right. So as a photographer, you were like,
Yeah.
how can I?
So,
yeah.
you know, we sat down one night. He saved me.
You're such a nice guy.
But the
I
thing
edited one.
is that I think with those pictures, you kind of had blinders on as to what was good.
Yeah.
Because even to this day, like there's a few of those pictures I said like those are phenomenal.
Yeah.
as is.
Yeah, and I look back at them now and I'm like, I love these pictures.
Right.
But it was
Yeah.
like in the moment, I was just like, everything's green and I hate them.
Well, you tell yourself that it's like with anything. You're like, well, this is terrible. Honestly, this is where I stopped doing this.
And it's really hard as an artist to view something, to view work that you've done just for hours on end and change your mind on it. You're not
Yeah.
really going to change your mind on it.
Yeah.
You kind of need that second set of eyes to tell
Yeah.
you, no, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. One thing I saw on Instagram a little bit ago was like, oh, that's so true. A girl was like, she gets home from a wedding every single time and she puts all her pictures on her computer. She edits like 10 of them.
Right.
And then when she wakes up in the morning, she hates every single one of them that she edited. And she's like, it's such a good thing for me to do because I initially edit it how I think I want it.
Right.
And then I have time to like think about it actually. And I'm like, I hate that.
Yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
like that's so like, I do that all the time. I'm like, I love this. And then I
Right.
wake up the next day. It's like, I hate that.
It's such a visual thing.
Yeah.
It's like with me and Will on shots. Listen to one of our pretty much every time we go over a shot list for something that we're shooting, and Will will be like, I think this shot will work better. I'm like, I hate that idea. That is not like I don't. Will like we've gotten to the point where we're just honest with each other. We're like, I don't think that's gonna work. And then I'll see it and I'll be like, oh yeah, what mine was stupid. Why would we not go with yours? Or he would
Vice versa. Vice versa.
But it's the same with like writing. Like I'll write something and I'll be like, that's good, and then I'll wake up and be like, that's. There you
good.
go with that. That is a dead end.
But like, so for Rose, like you obviously had to learn your camera.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you just learned it over time, or was there any moment or situation that you were in that kind of pressured you to be like, oh, after that, I'm locked in. I know exactly what I'm doing.
With my
if that makes
Canon
sense.
camera or with
Either
my,
one of them.
Well, I guess with like the Canon, like since you had a Canon also, like when you first started,
Yeah.
I always came to you for like, oh well, what's the like normal like say settings for it?
Yeah.
You said, all right, do not put it on auto, so always shot on manual, and I had to figure out like what ISO works good for that camera, because like you've told me with my Sony that 400
There's
is
a
good one.
native. That's
Yeah.
a native ISO.
Yeah, and I try to stick with that, and then just move my f-stop and aperture like up and down.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well, one thing is taking it kind of just everywhere. Say
Yeah.
in your situation, like with Paula, it's kind of like when you do a wedding, you're kind of forced to learn your camera and kind of
yeah.
become a better photographer, because there's not really a chance for you to be like, I wonder if this will work. It's like, no, you just do it,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, that didn't work. Okay,
Yeah.
well, here's another picture. I better change
especially
that.
with it being like, I think Jesse and Edwards was the first wedding I did with you, and it was like harsh lighting and everything, and I was not ready for it. And I was like, all right, well, what am I supposed to
You
do?
have to
if
make a
this
fast
happens?
adjustment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like you said, you can't make them walk down the aisle again.
Yeah.
I mean, you can ask them to kiss again, because I did do that.
Yeah, you have to be very strict. Do it again.
You have to be Rose-esque
Yes.
to ask a bride and groom to kiss again.
They were okay with it.
Afterwards, I was like, maybe just don't do that.
You're like, since I asked you to do this, maybe don't do that. Well, that brings up us four have done weddings, 2 weddings, right, together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rose and Paula as the photographers, and Will and I as the videographers. Will and Paula the main ones, and me and the tag-alongs.
The sports
We're just there for a
cases.
good
We
time.
couldn't
Yeah.
do it without you. though.
You literally can't. You can't.
Yeah. But I felt like that was some of the best. Like, if there was things that I can point to, the opposite of the topic, which are like adversity moments, points that I was like, I could really get into photography, was those times. Because and I'm a sucker for like a group activity in that sense. So
It's
like
always
it might
more
have
fun.
it might have been
always
that,
more fun.
but just seeing you guys work and like being
Yeah.
like, oh well, like I got this shot. And he was like, oh, that's great, and I'm like, cool. Yes, let's do it. And then like just us, like it was like before I'd always like be at a wedding as a guest, and now I was like we were working it, and it was so much fun to be able to talk to you guys about it and get your opinions. So like we've worked together and seen each other work. So like those were times where I was like, I could do this for a living. I could really get into this. But for me, I'm like, I would do video, but photography, I just always like, with me, whenever I go anywhere, it's like, okay, how do I what would happen in this scenario? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what would be, so I'm thinking more like writing wise and like storylines. When I take a picture, I'm just kind of like something in my mind is missing. You know what I mean? Like I want to get people like posed in the picture to do what I, you know, like you guys find, and I guess with you it's couples and you're posing them, but like with you especially, you find just like you'll take a picture of a building and it'll be like, and I'll look and be like, I'm in my childhood because of the nostalgia or whatever,
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
I'm transported to like you've taken a few with like Stranger Things themes, and I'm like, oh man, you had one down in or New York, that building with like the cool like, and I was like, that's such a cool picture, that is such a cool like vibe. I don't really know why, but you captured a captivating story. Do you know, like a captivating
without really
image that I'm just like, that's really good. I can't really tell you why, but it's just good. You know what I mean? And it's I just never really got to the moment where I was taking pictures. I was going, I'm getting that vibe from that. I was like, I would rather leave it up to you guys, and I do what I feel comfortable with most as far as storytelling.
Yeah. With anything, videos closer to like a storytelling movie than photography is anyway, because it's just one moment.
Exactly.
Well, that's something that kind of drew me to videography, is the fact that you can tell a story. So you can dive into the story so much more and be like, oh, like you can really not have to have the audience think about it. It's like, this is the story. But that is an awesome part of photography that can set you apart from other photographers if you know how to do that in one shot.
Tell me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like with us being friends, I definitely got a vibe. I definitely have felt like I have gotten more appreciative of the visual side of things. Of like, you know, this image or this shot tells this story. Before, I always was a big fan of cinematography, but like I didn't know the meaning behind different shots. Being friends with you and going over that kind of stuff, I felt like you showed me the shot aspect of it, the visual side of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like I also like having
completely.
the conversations we've had of like the little details and like the feeling and the emotion.
This is why we're doing this.
This is why we're doing this.
because it just worked.
Is because when like
You have that director side in you that kind of, it's like, this is the story I want to tell. And I'm like, cool, this is how you can tell it.
this is how I want to see it.
Yeah.
And I think that works so
Exactly.
well as far as just like I always would rather work with somebody than work by myself. Always, because I like talking.
Totally.
So, but
That's where I feel like that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
It's like I'd rather help someone out and like add on to it than be completely by myself.
right, exactly.
Be the main shooter in that case.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that, especially like when you're just getting comfortable with the profession.
Yeah.
It's a good spot to start, and you're going to learn a ton by not having that pressure on you to be the main person and make sure that everything's, running smoothly.
Yeah, and I feel like you said like you love doing the weddings, but like I feel like when you do a wedding, it's such a strange feeling, but like you realize like you're there and you have like such an important role in this day. Like it's so easy to just be like, oh, we're just taking pictures and videos. But like to them, it is like everything.
It's a
'Cause
lifetime.
They say what you have is your partner and your pictures.
Right.
And like taking a picture at a wedding, I know it can get like overwhelming, but when you just stop and think like they're gonna want this forever, so like let's just take our time and we'll figure it out. Like
And another way to think about it is no matter what photo you have on your wall, over time it's gonna age. It's gonna that photo is gonna go throughout the years no matter what. So if you're capturing a moment and like people laughing and interacting with each other, it's like you're gonna want to see that on your wall as opposed to something that's like you're just making sure it's crystal clear. And when you're not really thinking and you're just capturing happy, good moments, I guess that's why my point is relative to what you're saying.
Yeah. And like
when you're not really thinking about it too much and you're just capturing happy, good moments, that's when everything's like clicking. And then those are the pictures they want anyway. So it's not something.
Yeah, and like that's like weddings to me are like a ton of work. Like if someone said to me, would you rather take just like engagements or whatever or weddings, I would say engagements and like just a couple sessions every single day of the week. But when all of us were there doing the wedding, there was like this like strange like current kind of like we're like doing like such an important thing here.
Yeah.
And like it's easy to overlook that. But
Yeah.
like it is like a huge day.
Yeah.
Like, and like even like say this coming Saturday, I'm taking pictures at a
Right.
wedding.
Yeah.
Like right now I can start to get like a feeling in my
Yeah.
stomach that like
nervous.
not even like nervous, but more just like this is a huge day to them and it's
Right.
just another Saturday for me. But I
Right.
need to make it a huge day for you.
Yeah.
For you. Yeah. Well, I feel like when we would do that, Will, you're very much so like a lone wolfer in a sense where like you were just like, this is a good idea. I'm going to go do it and then I'll talk to you about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Paul,
That's
I
fair.
felt like you're much more of like a leader of where like, and you have to be because of what you do so often is like, you be here, be like me and Rose had a situation where you said, oh, go take some groomsmen videos and pictures. And we're like, do you want to tell them? And she's like, well, and we're just like, well, together we'll tell them.
Yeah.
But like when we're just with, you're just like, you go here, and like you're
Yeah.
directing and you're leading. And I felt like that takes the pressure off of, again, if we were there with somebody, when you have somebody with your caliber of just being able to be like,
Experience.
this is
Yeah.
just this is what I
Experience.
want.
Yeah.
Be here.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off of
Your second shooter.
And
Your
just
second
feel
shooter of just
comfortable
being
in
like-
saying it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And
what
that
you
helps.
want.
And that helps the second shooter and Rose in this case. That helps you kind of be like, I see what she's doing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I need to do. So that's why it's really good to be comfortable. It's like the same thing in sports. When you're comfortable being a role player, it works out really good
Really
for
well,
everyone
right.
Yeah.
because you're kind of learning in that stage
Yeah.
to then take the reins when you're the main person in
You're
charge.
the main, yeah. It's a lot of working together is like it's a lot of like realizing it with Will with videoing. It's like a lot of like understanding how they compute things. You know what I mean? Like how they visualize things. Like we both know. Like Will knows that. I mean, you know Will. This, and I'm much more of like, let's sit in it for a 2nd So when we're coming up with ideas, it's legitimately, I'm like, okay, let me think about it.
I throw 50
And
things
Will's
at Jim,
just throwing stuff,
and sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't.
and I'm just like, okay. And then by the end of it, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be 40. I go, okay, follow me. And I start spatting off things. He's like, yes. And right. And like, that's why we work together. Is there like a situation, like you two do a lot of pictures together? Like, obviously, you know, you're close, so it's easy. But like, do you feel like you guys have that where you're like, okay, I know what she, you know, like how well is in this situation, you know, how well she handles it? Or is it just kind of like I can trust you, so that's why I'm choosing you to go?
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like it has a lot to do with, like, we're friends. So, like, that was initially, you know, she gets into photography, like, well,
Right.
I need somebody to help me, and William didn't want to.
mostly just for personal reasons.
Right. Competition.
But, no, like, I mean, I'm just confident in the fact that I know, like, whatever I ask her to do, that she's going to try her hardest to do exactly what it is that
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And does it like ever come into like style wise, like you two, like, I don't know, like have you like ever thought, okay, like, or I guess Rose in this situation, like if you're usually Paula, you would ask Rose to go. So do you ever think like, how would Paula shoot this? Or are you still in the mindset of like, I'm Rose.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm doing photos for me. Or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I would say like seeing her, like I like her style, so
Right.
like why wouldn't I kind of like do what she wants?
right.
And not that it's just because that's what she wants, but like that's how I would probably shoot it too.
That's how you like it anyway,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Also, when you're typically when you're a second shooter, you're capturing all candids.
Yeah.
So at that point, you
Right.
don't really shoot it in any certain style.
Right.
If that makes sense. I mean, you got to make a lens choice.
Yeah.
And that's going to make a huge difference in the story that you tell. But when you're a second shooter at a wedding, you're typically capturing candids. So they're kind of going to all be, for the most part, pretty
Right.
much similar just because
Yeah.
a candid is a candid.
Well, do you ever, any of you guys, to feel like, okay, because I felt this a lot when I was doing it, is like when I would we would go with like me, you, and Trev would go out and I'd be like, take a picture and I'd edit it. I'd be like, this looks like a picture Trev got last week or Will got last year. Do you ever feel like when you do pictures, sometimes you're like, that looks too much like theirs and just not do it? Or is it like, or does your editing tell it apart. You know what I mean? Like, do you follow what I mean? Like, it does it ever feel like, okay, I'm too much looking like this, or is it just like, this is my picture, I like it?
I don't ever really feel like that because we're so different, William and I.
Yeah,
And then like,
Well, don't even compare it to us. Compare it to other photographers. That you
Yeah, I
know.
guess even other photographers,
I would say like editing wise, no.
No.
But like sometimes, like I feel like you can tell like at what stage photographers are, and like I can find myself like doing some of the same things that other people that I know are in the kind of the same stage as I am.
Right.
But like,
But for the most part, it's like, it's my picture, I'm doing, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's with couples pictures, it's like you're taking a different couple. So even if it's the same exact picture, it's different
That's the
people.
point.
It's different people, right?
That's the point I was going to bring up is that when I first got into photography, I relied heavily on editing. Like editing was like, I would take a picture because I knew I could edit it to be a beautiful image. But when I started to get to the point where it was like, started getting into wide angle photography and 35 millimeter and getting into film, was you kind of set yourself apart by your storytelling as opposed to editing. Like now, when I first started, the photographers that I followed on Instagram said a lot about the photographer that I was.
Right.
And I would only follow those guys and girls that would take an image and it was like the term is buttery. The photo is just buttery and just beautiful. And it was like, I want to do that. So it was like, I would incorporate certain colors in my photos because it was like, that's what I want. Theirs looks awesome. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely not. It's a whole separate style of photography. Right. But I think the way that you say, if you want to set yourself apart, is in your storytelling, because no one can tell the story that you have in your brain.
Right.
So it's only you that can tell that story. And yes, if you can still use your editing, make it look beautiful, but it's never going to look the same as someone else's photo if you're not telling the same story that person
never gonna
is
feel
telling.
the same.
Yeah.
It's never going to feel the same.
Yeah.
Which
Rose,
is
you ever feel that way?
Like I always felt like, oh, I don't want to like copy anybody.
Yeah.
But like I found like presets and stuff like William and Paul pointed me to like in a good direction of what to get and based off of what I told them I liked.
Right.
But I feel like it's still different than how Paula does it.
Right.
Do you have those same presets?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
but like I
like
feel
there's
like it's
10 of them.
Yeah.
So
can
you
tell.
might have picked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you can tell the difference between her photos and your photos.
Yeah.
And I think like I can look at a photo now, and I never used to be able to. Like I can look at a photo as soon as it's on my computer and be like, I know exactly what I need to do to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you're probably not there yet.
Yeah, no.
Like it took me forever to get to like William. He would look at a picture and be like, "You need to do this," and I was just like, "How do you know
How do you
that?"
see
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
And now like I can thankfully like look at a picture and be like, I know exactly what I need to do.
Right.
And like I feel like that's why our pictures can look different, because I know exactly what I want my picture to look like.
Right.
She
Yeah,
probably
I
doesn't
was just
know
gonna
what
say.
she wants her picture
Yeah.
to look like
Right.
yet.
And then when she gets to that point, it's going to be different than what you're
Yeah,
thinking is going to
exactly.
make your image perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that is because like writing, we've had a few skits where I'm working on them, and we had one where we want to do one where we're texting, but like there's a misunderstanding through text, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like talking to Will about it, like the issue I'm having in writing it is Key and Peele did a similar thing where it's a misunderstanding through text, so it's like a very similar journey, but I'm trying to differentiate and not follow the same
Yeah.
beats. So like I feel like I've come up with it different, but I feel like it's very different in those circumstances where it's like copying a joke is very different than being like it's a difference between homage and copying. Do you know what I mean? Like paying an
Yeah.
homage is like, oh, this is this guy's
Yeah.
style. I'm gonna kind of incorporate that
Yeah.
into my shot versus I like that. I'm gonna take it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like I don't know how different it is when it comes to photography. I just felt like when I was doing it, like I had a few shots of Will and I was like, oh, that's a cool shot. And then I'd look at their photography like, that's a shot that they pretty similar to what they got. And I never felt like that was different enough. But when I see your guys', I'm like, it's different. So I don't know how, I guess it's like you guys said, what you know what you want it to look like.
Yeah,
Maybe
where
Rose,
I'm like more trial and error.
right, exactly.
Like,
So like that separates it.
Yeah.
As far as that.
Well, I think it's like originality is extremely difficult to accomplish now. Like I feel like there's probably originality is probably really rare in any kind of I don't want to say art, because in say painting and sketching and anything like that, I mean, you can kind of find originality, but especially with filmmaking, every single new film that comes out, single photograph that's captured is influenced by something that someone saw and thought that it looked really good.
Right.
And you make it your own by what you take from different photographers that you love. But I think it's really, really difficult to be like, yeah, I'm the only one that does this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you really find that nowadays, because everyone's trying to be original, so therefore no one really is.
Definitely, yeah.
Because everyone's kind of taking different things for different areas.
yeah.
Maybe for your skit, you could like in the text message you could write like, "This is not."
Yeah, a disclaimer.
Inspired by.
This is not a complete
That's
copy
what
of.
the misunderstanding is.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But it's so funny though. It's like it's so hard to like you talk about originality, and it's like it's like it's not original, but it's like it depends on what you do with it that makes it original. Like movies or so. In the last 3 or 4 years, there have been maybe 6 or 7 mainstream movies that are a young kid or person needs to get somewhere, grizzled old war veteran or something has to get them there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but I would say that they're so different in the way they approach it and how they tell it. So it's like,
Exactly.
yeah, you can look at it and go, oh, it's the same story. It's the same line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same idea, but it's not the same story.
Yeah.
If
Think
that was
about
the case, we wouldn't watch movies anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Really.
every single Disney princess movie is the exact
Has
same
been
story.
has
Yeah.
been done exactly, and it's like it's not necessary. And yeah, that gets old. It's like a trend in anything. You know, you see it in movies all the time, and especially music and movies and TV shows. Once something starts making money, and they're like, "Oh, that's a
Yeah.
cool storyline." Superheroes is a
Yeah.
perfect example. As soon as Iron Man came out, like there were superhero movies before, but they weren't as. Soon as Iron Man came out and was like, "You can make big bucks."
Yeah.
Everywhere,
Right.
everywhere had
I
a
get it.
superhero movie. Podcasts,
Yeah.
very trendy thing right now.
That's not
So-
why we did it.
No, not at all. But again,
Wouldn't
if
copy
you feel
anybody.
like you have something to say, do a podcast.
Yeah.
If you don't feel like it, do a podcast. I'm not your
Podcasting
dad.
is actually the perfect example,
right.
because we're not doing anything that any other podcasts are doing.
Well, we
not
are.
talking
We're
about
sitting
the
on a couch. We're using
Exactly.
your mic and we're using your
Podcasting
recorder.
is the
They
perfect
don't have
example
me
for
and
it.
Paula.
That's a very good
Exactly.
point.
I haven't
That's a
seen
very
them
good
on
point.
any other podcast.
Not that I know.
Petitioned. We really haven't gotten a job yet.
So just to keep the pod moving,
Pod movie.
I think we can go straight to number 8 and then into our do's and don'ts.
Will
list.
really liked this one. He really wanted to get this one in there.
I'll ask him.
Okay. Wait.
The last topic that we wanted to cover is, because I think it's one of the most important parts of photography, is what is either one of your approach to lighting and capturing lighting and how you feel about
And
lighting.
we're gonna mute our mics and just you guys go. Just
We're not going to mute our mics, but
just go.
or
You go first.
I mean, the like idea, I was literally just talking to you about this. Like the idea that like we're gonna go to a wedding and it's gonna be like bright sun used to be like he like ingrained in my head that that's like the worst. And like I feel like you're stuck with that at a wedding. You're always have like a sunny day. So it's like, all right, like how are we gonna handle this? Kind of like you at Jesse's wedding. And then it's like, okay, well, we can either find some shade or we can just figure out these
Embrace it.
settings.
Because you
and how
can't, you
we
can't
gonna do
change
it.
where the ceremony's going to happen.
I know. So, I mean, obviously, like, if you can do it at, like, golden hour or, like, a good lighting situation, we're always going to pick that for sure. Like, I feel like any photographer would say that.
yeah.
But,
Well, Well, how about
just,
just
like,
say
learning
angles and positioning for your lighting,
I mean,
especially
like,
with couples photography?
I mean, like golden hour, like I'm always putting it. Well, it just depends. Most times I'm always putting the light like behind them, and then or like mostly like on an angle to them, probably.
Yeah.
Like in the back. And then, but then like also like I feel like a new style of photography is that like at golden hour you get like it right on their face, and then they're like all orange.
I
and
just
like,
saw a picture that yours that you
Yeah.
did that, and I
Yeah.
was like, that was really cool looking.
Yeah. I feel like that's
Yeah.
like a different style than like ever used to be. Like girls or photographers would always be like, "Oh, this is a sick picture because like the sun's coming in and it's like hitting them like right on the back and like they're all glowy." And now it's like girls like the sun was hitting them right in the face, and I like took it and it was like half her face was dark, half her face was light, and it was
Yeah.
awesome. Like
Right.
so.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Bro.
No, I would say like back to Jesse's wedding is like I asked beforehand, should I shoot darker or should I shoot lighter?
Right.
And you both kind of had like somewhat of a different way because of how you guys both edited. And like I would say as of now, I kind of do like I'll shoot brighter because I can bring it down.
Right.
Yeah.
But also it works, it could work either way depending on how actually blown out or how dark it is.
Yeah, it
Right.
very much so depends on the time of day.
Yeah.
And if you have a super sunny day at that point. But what Paula, what you said, putting the light behind the subject, like shooting towards the light, that's like number one with cinematography, photography. That's rules in photography and cinematography are okay to be broken once you understand them. But a very basic rule for cinematography is it's camera, subject, light, camera shooting towards the light. And that is like, say, if you're especially just starting, if you want to look like a professional, that's a very easy way. I mean, you have to understand how to capture that light, but that's a very easy way to kind of take your images from being just like, you can tell you just started to like actually being like improving, I guess, on what
Right.
you're doing. But one thing with shooting on my Fujifilm camera is getting those shadows that come straight at your frame, straight at you in the frame, is just some of the most beautiful images to capture. I don't really know why,
Kind of like a golf ball coming right at your frame.
Yeah,
You would
pretty
say
much.
similar.
but like if you have a row of trees at sunset and you're shooting right towards the sun and that shadow comes straight at the frame, there's something about it that, and with shooting on that Fujifilm camera, capturing light becomes like really essentially all of what you're doing with that camera. Because if you can capture light perfectly, your image is going to look significantly better.
Well, that speaks to originality. Is like, my favorite thing in the world is finding a shot and being like, Will, why did they choose to shoot this way? And he goes, I don't know, that breaks all the rules. And he'll like sit there and be like, why did they shoot it like this?
Yeah.
And you've come around on it a lot more
No,
recently.
totally.
He'll just
Totally.
go, I'm realizing that your shot, like as long as it has a purpose, then that's why it matters. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't necessarily have to follow a rule.
Yeah.
Like obviously you want your rules, but like it doesn't have, if you like, it's like kind of there to be broken if you
Yeah.
can find a good way to break it.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yes,
mean?
If your story's rock solid, then it's fine. Just break the rule.
I just watched a few. What was it? It was something recently where he was like, "Why did they shoot it like that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." It looked
Recently,
cool.
we
He's like,
watched
"It does look
something
cool."
where they broke the 180-degree rule, which is your camera, if you're shooting two people here, your camera does not leave this plane. And it was shooting here, and then they're shooting here, and it was like breaking the rule, but
Right, in a good way.
it worked for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of it as like beach pictures to me. Like I'll notice like photographers always seem like they're like all over the place with like beach pictures. Like they'll like take a couple like on the beach at sunset or whatever, and like they'll have one picture and it's like real golden, like orange, and then like they'll put another picture in the slide and it's like
Looks
bright white.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like they literally probably just switched the way that they were shooting towards the sun.
Oh, okay.
And like it's crazy because they look good, but like sitting there looking at them as a photographer,
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing?
I know. Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, well, it's a really good picture. But like, I even noticed like pictures I took of Rose and Connor on the beach. One I just loved, but it's like looks like I'm shooting at like 12 o'clock in like at lunchtime.
Right.
And I'm like, I hate that because we took the time to like
To go at
take it
sunset. Yeah.
and it doesn't look like it's
Right.
sunset.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's always like interesting to me is like when we shot those weddings, it was like, okay, follow this. Will would always be like, follow this rule and you'll be good. And then like I'll see him do something and be like, well, that's
But
not the rule.
But you just
You're breaking it.
But I'm like, he knows, but that's not the rule.
The teacher's allowed
To break the rule.
if your story that you're trying to tell means you need to break the rule, then that's when it's okay to break
Yeah,
it. But if
yeah.
you don't know why you need to break it, then it's best to follow the rules because that kind of guides you to becoming the next level photographer / videographer.
Well, this is not a question, but I want to ask it. Is like, do you ever feel like you're like, when you take a picture, is it just because like, oh, I feel this, or are you just kind of like, this will look really cool? like I feel like when like we do stuff, I'll be like, is it practical? Is it like really telling a story? No, but it'd be really cool. We've been like, we should have a lightsaber fight, and we'll be like, well, what was your story? I'll be like, them,
It would just
them
look
hitting
cool.
each other with lightsabers would be the story.
That's a good question.
So it's like, does that ever play a factor where you're just like, does it just look really cool?
I would say with me, like not really following a set thing, like it's all the time.
right,
like I'm
right.
like, oh, like I don't know why I'm gonna take it, but like I just think it'll look cool in the end.
Right.
And it's not gonna.
You might not
follow-
use it.
Yeah, and it might not follow the rest of whatever else I was doing that day in shooting.
Right.
But I still think it looks really cool. So
Right.
why not? It's like one snap
Right.
of the like of the
Yeah,
camera.
I think that's a good spot to be in when you're first learning. You're shooting everything. You kind of give yourself time to figure out
Right.
what works and what
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally tell like from the very first like wedding or even session to like now, like it's like a joke, like, oh, everyone overshoots. But like I feel like as I get farther in, like I get less and less pictures every single time.
Right.
And it's like, well, why is that? It's because when they're walking down the aisle, like before I would stand there and take like 800 pictures of her walking down the aisle. And now it's like, well, let's like see if she starts to cry or
Right.
if she like he like looks at her and like puts his hand out or something
Right.
like that. Like I feel like there's plenty of times where I'm taking it because I'm like I feel
It's purposeful.
what they're feeling rather
Right.
than be like,
Yes.
oh, this just looks cool because
Yeah.
there's flowers
Right.
and there's
Right.
more so than ever before.
So you feel like as you've gone on, you've been less like, oh, that looks cool,
Yeah.
and more like, this is the reason behind it is
Yeah,
more
exactly.
important.
Like
Yeah.
even like say taking pictures like just of a couple. Like
Right.
before it was like just run.
Yeah.
And now it's like if like Connor were to like reach up and move Rose's hair out of her face. Like to me that is like such a feeling.
Right. Right.
And like I want that picture
Yeah.
1,000 times over
Right.
the other picture. Before I'd be like, oh my gosh, they look amazing when they're running down the aisle.
Yeah.
right.
Well,
Right.
For me, I know that having my Sony camera and all these my huge lens that could take super close-up pictures and get phenomenal shots, it was very easy to be tempted to take photos because it looked good, because your camera specs are going to give you a phenomenal image. Switching over to my Fujifilm camera, you have to have something that is kind of calling you like, you need to
Yeah.
get this shot. Why? Because there's so much story here to be told, and having that Fujifilm camera took that option to, we'll take this just because it looks cool. It took that out of it,
Right.
because with that camera, you're not relying heavily on camera specs to get you a good image. It is more you're kind of forced to tell a story,
Right.
and not necessarily forced, but if you don't, then no one like,
It feels out of
Yeah.
place.
you're not
You can tell.
capturing an image that's worth looking at, essentially.
It was very true on Unremarkable 2 when we filmed. It was like, oh, this shot will really look cool and we'll really get in. Like, it'll be awesome. And then when we would edit, we would look at it and be like, why is that shot there?
Yeah.
And we'd be like, I don't know. And it'd be like, does it serve a purpose? And we're like, it looks cool, but does it? You know
Some of
what
the-
I mean? And I mean, when it's like looks cool and it tells a story, that's awesome. But like just looking cool, I feel like it's like oh, that's a cool shot. No, you know what I mean? It doesn't stick with you as much as say like a picture with a lot of feeling. You know what I mean? Like a picture of the Grand Canyon, you're like, wow, it's the Grand Canyon. But then okay. You know what I mean? But like something else happening in
You've
there.
seen
or
the
like,
Grand Canyon.
Exactly.
But I said this in one of our very early podcasts.
Right. We probably didn't even have the right headphones.
Some of the best advice that I got very, very early on, and it was from Peter McKinnon, not directly. Not close friends with him.
He's like, Will.
He said in one of his videos that no one.
God dang it, that's the wrong one.
I meant to pitch
He
down.
said that no one cares about your slow motion buttery B-roll, and I was like, that's right. Only I do, because
I care.
there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Obviously,
wrong with
Paula
doing
cares.
that. Paul and I just had a conversation. I said I miss doing videos like that just for the heck of that looks cool. I'm gonna capture it, but to get to the point where you are actually a successful photographer, cinematographer, I think you need to focus on story and really
I was gonna
dedicate,
say we're boring. Like yawning every-
really dedicate your thought process to, okay, I want to capture an image here because it looks beautiful. Okay, well, what kind of story could I tell within this image? So it was like, for me, the best advice that I got was that, like, no one cares about your cool looking image. And
said
it's
that-
hard to hear. It's hard to hear, but it forces you to do more than that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I meant, like when I was saying about like older generation. Like to them, everything was like.
And it's not everyone in the older generation,
I'm saying
but
that's
it's
what
common.
I've always heard. Like starting
It's
pictures,
common,
like
yeah.
let's get like a really nice shot.
Right.
And like to me, it didn't mean anything. Like I was gonna put this picture of William and I on my wall that like we're standing there looking at. I'm like, oh, this is nice.
Right.
Rather like whatever it may be, like we're showing such an emotion, or it's real blurry and like it looks like, oh, it's like a moment in time was like captured, or whatever it may be.
Right.
It's not crisp, it's not clear, it's not just looking at the camera. I want that picture 1,000 times over.
Right.
I would
Every
say
other
I've heard from even like my parents like looking at the pictures of me and Connor, and they're like, "Well, like, why does it look like that?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "Because it looks cool."
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
just, they have a totally different opinion on it. Like,
Yeah.
I think
Old
it's
people just don't get it.
I think it's just
And so-
I think it's just the fact that photography, to people that are not into photography, really say passionate about it, is just a photograph.
yeah.
Well,
Until they experience more than just a photograph. And that's the story that's your job to tell, and have them not even have to think about it and just understand why it's more than just a photograph.
Yeah.
it's the same as the saying is like hatred is spawns from misunderstanding or not understanding it. Is like being like, oh, that's a like, why do you edit it? Comes from a not understanding on how much effort that takes,
Yes,
how much time that takes, how much passion and creativity that takes. Like
Do we have another hour?
we could go as long as we want. It's like you like, I feel like with our skits and our people, like, and it's rightfully so, like, be like, oh, well, where is it? Well, why aren't you done it yet? And it's like, well, I
'Cause
have to
it's
write
not
it.
good
I have to
enough
come up.
as it
I
is.
have to come up with a day. I have to write it, and then we have to plan it out. We have to get a shot list together. Then we have to have Ian and Jake, who don't have professional acting, we have to get them to act it out.
Yeah.
I have to be there and be like, okay, Jake, I need you to have this face exactly, and you have to, you know what I mean? You have to laugh at this, and Ian, you have, and
Yeah.
it's so much work. And I feel like if someone was just there with you and seeing you on set and seeing you do your photos and the amount of time you edit on them, they would be like, I get it. I understand.
And I think my
It's more
family
than
is
just
like,
an image.
or like my mom is like
Right.
finally like realizing that. Like before she'd be like, but you just like go to the wedding when you get home. Like, and
Right.
now she's like, you're up in your room editing for hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's what it is.
That's
It's-
your passion.
Okay, so I'm spending 8 hours at the wedding, but I'm spending 29 more hours at home editing it.
It's just, it's like, oh, well, it's like, why does it cost that much? It's like, well, the time that goes into it, you don't see. You know what I mean? Like, we're shooting a film without a budget. while we work 8-hour jobs, while you know what I mean, while we have other things going on, it takes a ton of time, and we don't have sets. We have to do it at people's houses. We have to use like our horror short. Like we look at it and we go
2 and some minutes
it's
long.
not that great. We could have done, but we're shooting in Will's house. You know what I mean?
We gave that everything we had.
Absolutely. And I feel like for what we have, it's really good. But you know what I mean? We don't have green screen. We don't have the stuff to do a ton of After Effects. And when you're shooting something like that, you kind of need it. And watching other people's stuff, it's like, well, they had all that stuff. And
yeah, but that's not to say like that like it still doesn't take time.
Exactly.
And like I feel like it's easy to like even for us be like, oh well, you're not doing weddings full time. You're still working a job. Like it doesn't take that long because you're doing it as a side thing. It's like, okay, well that doesn't discredit what we're doing. It's still taking just as long.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, like even for you guys, like, okay, you don't have a set, but you're still putting everything that you have into it to do it at his house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just when you look at something, I always feel like when you see, it's the same with like in any situation, say like workers at like McDonald's. It's so easy to be like, oh my gosh, it's just this. Always like think like, let me look deeper into it and see what's going on behind the scenes before I say, well, that's dumb or that's, you know what I mean? Like, and I do it a lot where I'm like, oh, that's just stupid. And it's like, but you have to realize that people are putting their like, you know,
They're passionate about McDonald's.
Exactly. Or like we're putting our passion for filmmaking. You guys are putting your passion for photography out there for people to see. It's not easy to do that just in and of itself.
Yeah.
So like when you look at things, look at like in art, people like it's just like people just get ketchup and sprayed it. It's just coming from a place of passion and understanding. And like once you understand that there's a deeper level to it, I feel like it's like, oh, I get it.
I know.
I just feel like
you have to be within it. If you're not within it, then you kind of just.
And if you don't care to do that, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you to do it, but
appreciate it for what it is.
Try to do it. Like,
and if you aren't gonna try, don't come up and ask.
don't be like, really? Why are you editing again? It's like because it looks cool. Yeah.
You want to round off the episode?
We are at an hour and 20 minutes, and we didn't even do our do's and don'ts.
All right, well, we're gonna roll through these.
Do we want to do do's and don'ts? Are you guys?
Do's and don'ts.
Are you like? Oh, I'm ready to be done podcast.
These are going to be
It's
quick
more
answers.
work than you think doing a podcast, people. It's not just turn it on and record.
We'll give you
we
like
have to plug things in.
we'll give
and
us like
check
10
out.
seconds to answer. Okay.
Do's and don'ts.
Okay. First one. Expensive gear in the first year.
Yes or no?
I would say I didn't have expensive gear. I just had like I found something that you had, and I was like, I'll get this for now. And
So you're
then
going
we'll go-
cheap first year.
Yeah.
Paula. Expensive gear in the first year.
I sound like such a jerk.
You haven't said anything.
Yeah.
Yes? Why? Quick.
Good thing we didn't want to put him on spot.
Because
Slower.
well, yes, if you're like actually passionate about it, because you'll excel so much faster if you have it. If you're not like for you, I feel like you rushed into it and like
Yeah, a
you
little
bought
bit.
an expensive camera and then you didn't even want it.
Right.
As long as you know it's something you're really
Or that was
passionate
my-
about, buy the expensive
Yeah.
thing and you'll excel way faster.
Right.
That's literally exactly what I was going to say.
I would say yes, because we discussed this, and Will was like, "Do we really need it?" And I was like, "It's the nicest one out there,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't, if we can afford it, let's just do it and
If
get
the
it."
passion
and
is there and it's not going
we
anywhere,
really want this to go
why
somewhere.
not? If you can afford
Let's
it.
get it. Yeah, exactly.
Number two.
First lens for beginner. He said about prime lenses versus zoom lenses. I said maybe people don't know what prime lenses are.
I'll go
So,
first on this one.
Shoot, my guy.
24 to 70. That's the first lens you should get.
Whatever lens gets the best
It
shot
gives
for
you it gives you a lot of range of photographs that you can capture.
I'll say 35 millimeter.
Yeah, I would say the first lens I did get was a 35.
Is that based on doing couples photography?
Well,
Probably.
That's all I know.
Yeah.
If you're doing couples photography,
That's me,
totally
my guy.
agree because 35 millimeter is actually what your eye sees.
What's that
Yeah.
TikTok?
So that makes
People
sense.
keep saying I'm this. That's because I I can't remember what he says,
but 24 to 70, if you're kind of just
Yeah, which
doing
that's what
whatever,
Yeah, that's what you
it
told
gives you
me
a
to
wide
get.
range to kind of figure out what you like.
Yeah.
Number 3, Rose, you already brought this up, but underexposed or overexposed? I am team underexposed, but just expose it perfect.
I am.
And then you'll be good.
Which you
Okay.
found out how to do that by I'm trying to think of what that thing is called. Where
Well-
if the pointer is
Oh,
like
yes.
Yeah.
in the middle.
I heard
This
it
is
like
your favorite.
yes.
That means it's perfectly exposed.
Yeah, what is that
and
called?
I tried to
Histogram.
do that.
The histogram.
Yeah, but it depends because that might mean it's overexposed. Paula, underexposed or overexposed?
These are so hard.
She's like, I like all of my guests to be
It
fully
doesn't
dressed
have to
when
be.
I take their pictures.
Doesn't have to be super in depth.
For the most part, probably underexposed.
Under and then bring it up if you need to.
Probably.
Right.
Rose, you kind of already said it.
Yeah, I would say it's like depending on what it is, because sometimes I try to make it where it is, say, perfectly exposed, that maybe I'll bring it up a little bit
But yeah,
in brightness. So.
I mean, I like my shirt off sometimes, but you know, I prefer to be
we'll go
underexposed.
underexposed for you.
Yeah. Number 4, run and gun or dedicate time. I feel like
what?
for photography.
For
I feel like
photography.
yours is like dedicate time.
Like
'cause it's
throw your
like-
camera in your bag,
Oh.
go do whatever, or dedicate. I'm gonna go shoot at this time.
I'm gonna go shoot at this time.
See, that's where I'm bad at it. Is I'll just do it whenever.
But that doesn't mean bad because I think you learn both ways.
Yeah.
I first starting off, I will say run and gun if you're just starting, because if you do run and gun, then it means you're taking your camera everywhere.
You
Yeah,
should
and-
upload the video of me, you, and Trev on these topics. Remember that? Remember that video? You should
Yeah.
re-upload it to the Everyman guys. Sorry,
Yeah,
to cut
I
you off.
really struggle with that. Like he would
Run
always
and
be
gun.
like, "Just take your camera."
Yeah.
I'm like, "There's nothing I want to take a picture of."
Right, yeah.
But it's cool for me when she does, and then me and Connor are there because then we get pictures.
Right.
Yeah.
But your two styles don't call, you can do that.
Yeah.
Her style, like your
Yeah.
style doesn't really call for
I'm
run
like,
and
I
gun.
know no one's going dressed for me to take their pictures.
Right,
So why
exactly.
am I gonna try to?
I
No,
think-
more so. Even when you dedicate time, she's like, I'm
I
not
think
going to.
I think run and gun if you're a beginner, and then as that beginner stage wears out, you need to dedicate time.
That was maybe my thing, was like running gun was like, I was like, I just like, can someone stand there and be my, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to just take a picture of a tree because I can't make it look good. Like, it's
That's where it's cool because if I'm with me and Connor are with William and Paul, like we were at Longwood Gardens and I was like, all right, this would look cool. Go do this, and
Right.
the pictures turned out awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
I really like those ones where they're far away and you're like you're
Of me and
yeah,
Connor?
no,
Oh,
of
William and
Paula
Paul?
and Alyssa. I guess when you girls went, you didn't go? It was you and
Oh, it was the other gardens.
Oh yeah, the other.
oh right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't Longwood. You have a picture
Chanticleer.
of Alyssa Chanticleer. You had of her, you
Yeah.
and Alyssa, and I really liked it. It was like far away. Like I
Yeah.
really liked that picture.
Jim, I refuse to ask this last question.
I said, should we broach this question? And Will said, no, because I hate it. Manual or auto.
I don't
He
understand.
drilled
just
it
like-
into
Well,
my mind.
For
yeah.
this, beginners. That was what the mindset was.
Okay, manual.
Manual.
Manual. Manual.
Okay, I can give you. We can all give you an explanation that if you start in auto, that's like starting down the wrong
That's
path.
like driving a car in auto.
If you, I mean, I'm sure with professional cameras the way they are now, I'm sure you can take a good image in auto, but you do not have full control over what your image looks like. You never will if you shoot in auto.
It's not
So
yours.
if you're trying to tell a very specific story, as you become more than just a beginner photographer, you're never going to have full control over your images or, more importantly, the story that you're trying to tell. So if you start off on
Didn't want to talk
manual,
about this one, but
you're starting off on the right foot. So I don't think there is a question.
Yeah, but
That's
every
what I'm saying.
other one of those explained why you should do why you should shoot
Exactly.
manual. Underexposed, overexposed.
You don't have a choice.
I don't have a choice. It's just gonna set it for
It's
me,
just
and I
exposed.
might want it underexposed for whatever reason, or overexposed for whatever reason.
And like people like to use the excuse, well, what if I don't know my camera? Okay, learn your camera. Like you got to learn it at some point. You got to learn it at some point. So why not learn it right away? And then you don't have to.
Rose is like, I've been shooting in auto for years.
No,
I
Is that
love
the green
it.
A? Because it's always pointing to that.
I
No,
have
I
never
would say
exposed to
even
anything.
Even before I got my camera, he had mentioned shooting men.
Yeah, Paula never
I didn't even
shot
wasn't
an
even
auto
into cameras. I was just standing in a field one day. Will came up and was
Shooting
like,
manual.
"Do not shoot in auto. Shoot in manual."
I mean, we did cover this, but like when he thinks something, everyone around us gonna be thinking it.
Everyone knows. The only ad I
Jim-
need in my life is
Jim
Will.
just said that.
Is Will telling me to do something, and I believe him. You did your work, okay?
But that's where it's cool is that they have this. We all have the same camera now. So
Right.
if I have a question about like a setting or something,
Yeah.
they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shooting in auto is more so for like someone who's just like, oh, casually, like, oh, I'm gonna take, and I don't need to learn all the figamajoms
Yes,
and
if that is you,
figamasoops.
go for it.
Right.
If you don't care
Even
about
if
it,
you're taking it seriously, you want to shoot in auto, do it. You're just wrong. It's
if-
okay to be wrong sometimes.
But that's it's okay. It's
To be
okay
wrong
if you're
sometimes.
wong.
Just don't shoot in auto.
No,
better.
if you
We're
what
gonna
Jim
put that on a
said is
shirt.
very valid. That if all you're just like,
Thanks.
I just want to
Yeah.
my son's birthday,
You know?
Yeah.
the dog running out in the park, your neighbor naked through the window. It's like if
But
that's
can
all
do
you
that
care
better
about.
in manual.
Exactly. See, everything would be
You
better
can get
in
that
manual.
contrast better
It could
in
actually look
manual.
really cool.
Yeah. So
We've
we would
officially
like
come
this
to
is
the
officially
end.
our longest podcast yet, and I still feel like we could go another an hour and a half.
100%.
But we're not gonna. But what I would like to say is thank you for watching. Thank you guys for being on. You guys were excellent.
Yes,
And
this was awesome.
Thank you.
please come
Thank
back.
you.
Um,
Sure.
Also,
we
if
could do like a different topic. Like,
we
we
could
could do
like
We're like
pictures.
gym rats.
yeah, exactly. By the way, Paul, I was with you when you bought the hair thing.
Yeah, she's
clip.
showing the clip.
Ginormous. It
I've
could
never had a clip that would fit all my hair, and it fits.
it could be a cage for bunnies. That's how big it is, but it looks nice. It looks really nice. Like, comment, share, all that.
Subscribe.
All that. Subscribe, please.
Share it with someone that doesn't already currently watch because that's how we can grow. That's how we can bring you more
Absolutely.
episodes.
And if you want to see
skits.
them ever again, like, comment, subscribe on this episode specifically to let them know that they have value on YouTube.
For sure.
most definitely. And thank you for watching the Everyman, guys. Catch you on the next one.
Yeah, that was our best one. High fives. We always do the high fives, guys. Yeah, there we go. Woo! All right.
There it is. Bye.